The Department of Veterans Affairs will spend more money than Congress gives it this year on information technology. VA can spend money this year it's been stashing for IT for the last 5 years. Jim Gfrerer is principal at Fidelis Technology. He's former chief information officer at VA. Jim, thanks for coming back on the program. It's great to see you. So Aaron Boyd in NextGov piqued my interest with this headline. VA is asking Congress for fewer IT dollars in 2022, but plans to spend more than 2021. How do you pull something like that off, Jim?
Sure. Well, Francis, great to be with you. And certainly, as the article covered, that was via the Transformation Fund, which are essentially zero-year dollars that can be applied across a host of activities. I think the challenge that the Tech Modernization Committee, Chairman Mervin and Ranking Member Rosendale hit upon, though, is why are we not building that into the base budget, right? Why are we using kind of episodic, funds that are available only on a periodic basis? And so that's how that's working. I would also stress that even if it gets to that top number of 5.4%, 5.4 billion or thereabouts, it's still only at 4.6% of the overall department discretionary spend for 22, which is 120 billion. You have the challenge again where 5 billion sounds like a lot of money until you look at the denominator and you say it can't keep up with the growth of the lines of business within VA.
Yeah, that's the context that I think is important. It sounds like a ton of money until you match it to the top, to the big number. What kind of impact then, if it's not a huge number relatively speaking, what kind of impact can it have for the team that's in there now, Jim?
Well, certainly every dollar that's comes available is, has a home. There's a lot of deferred maintenance, a lot of deferred procurement, right? What we refer to as technical debt, right? The department has grown about 125,000 people in the past 10 years. Each one of those are voracious consumers of information technology and services. Meanwhile, we have not kept up. The VA OIT budget has not kept up. The staffing alone within the 8,000 plus workforce in OIT, our studies when I was there showed that we were at least 4,000 people short. So just from a workforce perspective, we think about the people that deliver and provision devices and make sure services are provided. They have not kept up, even though there were great scores.
There are a number of places where that money will go. As you said, every dollar has a name. The IT infrastructure improvements for medical centers to accommodate the new EHR system and other systems. There's the financial management business transformation program that we've discussed on this program before, modernizing the HR systems. There's just a lot of places for this money to go. How does one go about, not speaking necessarily to what's happening at VA today, because I know you're not there anymore, but how does one go about prioritizing where this money that maybe wasn't expected should go when there's so many things out there that could really use it, Jim?
Yeah, well, and you hit on a key point, even while I was there, and certainly it continues, the amount of major modernization programs, you enumerated several of them, really are adding to the complexity and the challenges of the modernization. I would stress, though, I know it came up in the SecVA hearing last week about the role of the CIO on this. Really each one of those, especially HR Smart and FMBT, they have business owners, right? The CFO is the business owner for financial management business transformation, the human capital officer, chief human capital officer for HR Smart. So it's really imperative that the business owner and OIT as the system owner stay aligned. They have common interest and line of sight around goals within any year of execution, and that the funding's there to make sure that it's each of these deployments are progressing. In
a program like that one, or in a program like the EHR program, or some other big thing that doesn't even necessarily live in VAHQ, that might live in VHA or might live in VBA. What do you advise people to do to stay aligned, to keep the business owner aligned with OIT? And again, not necessarily just at VA, all across government agencies are struggling with this exact issue.
Sure, and certainly this came up last week in the EHR hearings, right? And it was spot on. It was on the governance perspective, right? If you don't have strong governance, if you allow one office, even the Office of Primary Responsibility, to become, kind of an army of one and lead the way, and not have that collection of other supporting entities, OIT, HR, all the cast of players. That's probably the biggest challenge. And then making sure that the true costs, the life cycle costs are identified, and that those are aligned across the respective budget lines. Because I know in the case of VA OIT, where it has a centralized appropriation, you mentioned it with Milcon, there's a lot of work to be done to align that when a medical center is approved, that it doesn't just kind of happen in that out year, that VA has enough money to provision that medical center, which is obviously very costly.
We have less than a minute left, Jim. Is the measure for success in spending money out of this transformational fund different than spending the money that's in the base budget every year, or is money money?
Yeah, money is money. Again, I think that the real question and the challenge is, are you building sufficient money into the budget? And I would say that applies to every agency, applies across the federal government. Again, the federal government IT spend for 22 is going to be somewhere around $100 billion. That sounds like a lot again, but until you realize that the federal government has a discretionary budget of about 1.5 trillion. That's an average of only 6%. As the Office of Federal CIO says, if you are only at about 5%, you are barely maintaining, much less modernizing and innovating, which really are the demands of IT today.
Jim Gfrerer, thanks very much as always. Terrific to have you back on the show.
Thank you, Francis.